Hello, hello. My name's Mark Reid, and welcome to the Reading Room. Today I've got a sort of special that I'm putting together. I saw a video, and I just had to cover it. I had to go over there. It was um, really interesting. It was really interesting, really cool. Basically, I saw a video by David Wood. David Wood, I'll go through who he is, but he basically was talking about sort of what the metaverse was by Mark Zuckerberg and what it meant, and sort of you'll see what I mean. He sort of does this analogy that I've got to cover, kind of thing. I have to. It's impossible not to. But welcome everybody, and it's really good to see you. Is probably taking the P. Well, I mean, he's an apologist. He's putting out videos. He put out this video. Maybe it is just a troll kind of thing, but he sounds serious. So I'll let you make up your own mind for that. Oh, hello, Bree. So good to see you, darling. And Bree just made 1,000 subscribers, which congratulations. I want to say it in person. So good to see you, Big Bad Mama. I love your videos. Fantastic. Yeah. So, who is David Wood? I'm going to get straight into this one because I love this. This is sort of I've got copious notes as per usual. I'm just just incredibly religious for notes. Notes to my God. Um, and who's David Wood? So I'll just sort of get up on the screen. Who David Wood is, and this is his Wikipedia page. He's an evangelical apologist, head of the Acts 17 apologetics ministry. I'm not even sure what's in Acts 17. What's the deal with Acts 17? Acts 17? Secondary missionary journey of Paul. Okay, well, random, but sure. Um, so it's obviously when Paul is going around converting people. Criticizes Islam. Yes, he does. So, as you notice, early life incarceration and education. So, he stated he was an atheist and he had run ins with the law by breaking into homes and later went as far as to smashing his father's head in with a hammer. Yeah, yeah, yep. So, that happened. Hi, Maya. Good to see you. Um, so, he basically he had a belief that morality was merely societal rules and were beneath him. He was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. Now, this is sociopathy, and if you don't know, sociopathy is a trait where you do not develop a sense of empathy, and you sort of have a very and I'll sort of go through that. I've got that pinned as well, but what it means. But he sort of challenged somebody in prison who was a devout Christian. Um, he tried to beat him at fasting. This is really weird. Like he doesn't seem to be using sort of rationality and things like that. He seems to be using, you know, Randy beating him with his beliefs kind of thing, which isn't really a good reason to convert. Um, he began to read the Bible, participate in Bible studies in order to respond to Randy's rebuttals, thus beating him, but it led him to convert to Christianity. In 1996, he was put into prison at 18, which would make him, oh, that would be 90s or so. Okay. 5 years in between 5 years between jail and prison. He was released in 2000. Yep, doctorate in philosophy. So this is David Wood, and he sort of uses his life story as a reason why you shouldn't be an atheist. He thinks that atheism necessarily has no moral foundation, but I just want to point out that it's probably his sociopathy that led to hitting his father's head with a hammer, not necessarily atheism, because we don't think that way. If you've got empathy, you can go, well, you shouldn't hit a person with a hammer. That's going to hurt and possibly kill them, and that's horrible. It's a horrible thing to do. So antisocial personality disorder, or sociopathy. It's a lack of empathy and a contemptuous attitude. Law breaking, chronic boredom, substance abuse a lot of the times. And none of this I sort of blame David Wood for, but what I do take exception to is that, oh, well, I was an atheist and did this horrible thing, and now I'm sort of better now that I'm a Christian. I don't think he quite possibly is. I think he still may have sociopathy, or some problems there. But that's okay, as long as he's taking his medication and going to what he needs to do, that's fine. And the question comes up, should we convince, if he thinks a God is what stops him from doing all of this horrible stuff, should we convince him otherwise? I think yes. I think that you can't use a God as an excuse for your good behavior or bad behavior. You can't. It has to be. I don't think that it's up to us to determine how he'll be without his faith, kind of thing. And I'm not convinced he would be. I'm not sure, of course, but I'm not convinced he would be. But let's listen to David, and I wanna show you this video. And this is David Wood. It's David Wood. Thank you very much, Mark. And this is him talking about stuff.
Doesn't respect your privacy. Mark Zuckerberg. I do not like Mark Zuckerberg. Now, why don't I like this guy?
Is it because he sort of steals people's data, doesn't respect their privacy, has dubious business practices, uses labor that he underpays? There's a myriad of reasons not to like Zuckerberg, apart from he seems to be a bit of a weird guy. So there's a lot of reasons not to like Mark Zuckerberg and the way that he runs his businesses. But why don't you like him?
You might think it's because he's a billionaire tech nerd.
No, I don't. That's not one of the reasons I said, David. That's not one of the reasons I said. You can be a billionaire tech nerd. That's fine.
But Elon Musk is also a billionaire tech nerd, and I like Elon Musk.
Yeah, Elon Musk has said some pretty horrible stuff on Twitter as well. He's no amazing guy. I mean, I must admit, Elon Musk has done a lot for different industries and things like that. He probably has better hiring practice and better business practice than Zuckerberg, but he's like, I wouldn't say that I like Elon Musk. He said some pretty dubious things. I mean, he's been a bit of a douche, especially on Twitter when he was calling that diver in sort of, was it Thailand or Malaysia, a sort of pedo because he didn't approve of his submarine program. Like, I don't. Yeah.
So what's the difference between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg? Well, one wants to go to outer space to colonize Mars.
Yeah, I cut out a whole load of jokes about Zuckerberg. It was kind of cringe, to be honest with you. So I relieved you of that. So you can thank me later by leaving a like on the video that I cut out. Like, it was seriously about 6 in a row of these Zuckerberg jokes, which were terrible. I don't know where he got them from.
The other came from outer space to colonize Earth. I do not like the one who came from outer space to colonize Earth. And yet, there's something I like about him.
What do you like about him, Dad? So he's this horrible person with horrible practices, and he's an alien come to conquer the Earth. What do you like about him, David?
Something I really like about him. There's something I like about him so much that I can say I love Mark Zuckerberg, even though I can't stand him and his haircut looks like it came with 30 free hours of America Online. What do I like about Mark Zuckerberg? Well, speaking only for myself here, I like people who image God in various ways. People who...
Yeah, so everything that he's doing is horrible, hates him. As long as he's doing it for a God, he likes him. what does that say about you, mate? Um, so he's doing all of these horrible things. You don't like him. As soon as he acknowledges God, why does that make anything better at all? I don't understand. Maybe you can explain
Who
it to me.
reflect God in various ways. And I like them even more when they're imaging God as they're talking about being created in the image of God. So, Lex Friedman asks Mark Zuckerberg a question.
Big, ridiculous question. What do you think is the meaning of life?
I think that, well,
Yeah, it was weird. Like, I get it. It was weird the way that he paused for so long. I'll give Zuckerberg this. At least he was thinking about it. I think that he's sort of socially awkward kind of thing. So like every dictator ever. Yeah, Molossus. You'll notice this with David Wood. He kind of um, I get the feeling, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm misrepresenting David Wood. I don't want to do that, but I get the feeling that he only does what God wants because God can punish him. It's a might makes right kind of thing. Like he's got somebody with a club over him making him do things, not because it's right, but because he's afraid of the punishment. Um, is that's it is kind of his thing as far as I can see, but that's simply my feelings on the matter. Okay, I'll Wesley, welcome. It's good to see you. Yeah, we'll just talk about the video and stuff. Thank you for coming. Hey, Binge Thinker, good to see you. Yeah, I get that. I just think he's really socially awkward. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't like him. He's got horrible business practices. His sort of the way that he's scaled up and uses people's data for his own interests, I think, is incredibly wrong. There's a lot I don't like about Zuckerberg, but I'm not going to judge him for being socially awkward. I'm socially awkward. I mean, I'm not gonna throw stones in glass house, but at least I can say he thought about the question.
there are probably a couple of different ways that I would go at this. But I think it gets back to this last question that we talked about the duality between you have the people around you who you care the most about, and then there's like this bigger thing that maybe you're building.
Lex asks him about the meaning of life, and Mark focuses on two things: relationships with other people and building things. I think Mark may be onto something.
Yeah, so relationships and legacy, that's not unusual. Like, why this sort of points to God as, hey, yep, Wesley, I think you're done, mate. I'm sorry. You're out of here. Um, yeah, sorry. Bree, if you could take care of that, I'd really appreciate it. I'm having trouble finding my thing. Wesley, I can't let you just disrupt the stream, mate. I'm sorry. Love you, Wesley. Um, I wish you all the best. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. Where was I? Yes. So relationships and legacy. Yeah. So the relationships we have between humans, our communication, our sharing of events in our lives, that kind of thing, is a real people do find it to be one of the things that is a goal in life, or the reason for life kind of thing. In fact, if you look up the statistics, Australians are incredibly prevalent of this, friends as a meaning of life, one of the highest countries in the world. So and our culture has this kind of mateship. Like when someone's your mate, they're a friend who you are very, very protective, very close to. Very there's a lot of both male and female and interchangeably bonding in Australia of you protect your friends and you stand up for your friends no matter what. um, and it's a good thing, and sort of legacy is what you build in this life, what you do in this life, how your what you pass along. There's no monopoly on that for religion, and this is the kind of thing that religious people try to hijack. They try to say, hey, but community is kind of God. No, it isn't. It's just what humans do. It's not a religious thing. It just is a thing that humans have done forever. The whole idea that this is somehow acknowledging God is really weird.
And I think that in my own life, I mean, I sort of think about this tension, but when it's, look, I mean, I started this whole company and my life's work is around human connection. So I think it's intellectually probably the thing that I go to first is just that human connection is the meaning.
Mark thinks that we don't value human connection enough.
And I mean, I think that it's a thing that our society probably systematically undervalues. I mean, I just remember, when I was growing up and in school, it's like, do your homework and then go play with your friends after. And it's like, no, well, what if playing with your friends is the point?
As much as we don't like Facebook,
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah. What if the connection between humans is the point? Yeah, that would have been that would have been very well done, Finn. I agree. That would have been hilarious. I think that would have been really good. Yeah, so sort of connections to people, that's fine. Yeah, sure.
mining our data. And by our data, I mean your data. I got out of that hellhole years ago. As much as we don't
Yeah, so David Wood's not on Facebook. I'm sorry to disappoint you if you wanted to be Facebook friends with David Wood. He's not on there, but I'm not on there either. So it's, and I do have problems with the way that data is mined on Facebook. That's not why I'm not on there. I just don't enjoy it. I don't like that. There's too much input for me. But I've got nothing against it really. I think that if people accept the sort of the idea that your data might go to Facebook and it's used for certain purposes, I've got no problem with it. I don't have an issue. David's got different reasons for not liking Facebook.
like Facebook selling our data to the highest bidders, namely companies that will use the data to manipulate us. As much as we don't like the censorship and the bias and the manipulation of the platform, Mark Zuckerberg's intention for Facebook and for the metaverse he's building seems to be to create places where people from around the world can interact. He wants to use the internet to increase human connection. He wants to bring people closer together. The endless chunks of money he makes while doing it are just a perk. So,
Well, I don't think it's just a perk. I think that we all need to make money off of it. I think that he could make less money and sort of give his workers a bit more. I think that sort of distributing the wealth may be entirely in his purview. I think that might be entirely possible.
human connection is part of the meaning of life, but the other part is building something.
There's a rabbi who I've studied with who kind of gave me this. We were talking through Genesis and the Bible and the Torah, and they're basically walking through. It's like, okay, you go through the 7 days of creation, and it's basically, it's like, why does the Bible start there? Right? It's like it could have started anywhere, right? In terms of like how to live.
The Bible
Yeah, so it could have started anywhere. Yeah, but it started at the beginning because people wanted to know what sort of, when the first question that people sort of started asking in philosophy is, why are we here? Where did we come from? How did this happen? Like, how did we get here? You may as well sort of say, well, why does every fairy tale start with once upon a time? That is the beginning, and it starts with in the beginning because it's the beginning. Like, it seems like a really weird question to go, well, it starts there because it's the beginning. I don't like the Greek mythology starts with chaos and the beginning of the, like, all of these stories start with the formation of Earth and the explanation um, um, for why things are here. This isn't unusual.
Could have started with a list of rules, but it started with God creating. Why is that?
Basically, it starts with talking about how God created people in her image. But the Bible starts by talking about how God created everything. So I actually think that there's like a compelling argument that I think I've always just found meaningful and inspiring, that a lot of the point of what sort of religion has been telling us that we should do is to create and build things.
Genesis
Well, no, religion hasn't really been telling us to do that. That's something that humans do anyway. It doesn't matter whether you're religious or non-religious, or, doesn't matter what religion it is. We create. I think ever since the first sort of, Homo habilis picked up two sticks and tried to make them into something, we've been creating. We are tool users. That's why we create tools. I don't understand how, because the Bible says that, in the beginning there was this, this, and this, and God created things, that somehow that means that you should create stuff. Because whether or not you've even heard of the Bible, humans are going to create things anyway. It's such a weird argument.
1 in a nutshell. God creates, God creates, God creates, God creates, God creates, God creates, and then God creates human beings, male and female, and he says that men and women are created in his image. So the immediate context of God saying that human beings are created in his image is God creating. I really like watching people fumble their way to an important point.
No, this isn't an important point. This isn't an important point. This is sort of, and plus, God doesn't want humans to create. He says, "Thou shalt not make of graven images." Humans created the Tower of Babel, and he smote it because we were getting too creative for our own good. And humans, if they built the Tower of Babel, could be capable of anything. So God's fine with him creating, not so awesome about humans creating, and that's reflected in the Tower of Babel story. So this whole idea that because God creates and humans are in the image of God, therefore humans should create, is not a good argument, because the times in the Bible where humans have created new things, God's got quite angry with them. It's okay if God tells us to create something, like tells Noah to build an ark or something, that's fine. But if we go and build a tower by ourselves, oh, watch out, that's threatening God's sovereignty. So no, it doesn't say that humans should create. It says that God should create.
In my video, Norm Macdonald, The Image of God, we took a close look at Genesis 1, verses 26 through 28, and we saw.
Plus, sort of the idea that God created humans out of dust kind of thing, you can believe that if you want, that's fine. But we know from science that humans weren't dust with life breathed into them, and sort of this is sort of a deepity on what Zuckerberg is saying. It's kind of he mentioned religion says to create. He's creating, therefore religion is right. This is a terrible argument, David.
That
terrible.
In the verses that say man was created in the image of God, what it means to be created in the image of God has something to do with relationships. In the verses that say man was created in the image of God, there's man's relationship with God, there's man's relationship with other human beings, and there's man's relationship with the natural world. And man was created to image the eternal God in all three of these relationships. That's the meaning of image of God you get from Genesis 1, 26 through 28. But as our new friend Mark pointed out, the context of that passage.
Well, no, it could also be that God's made in the image of man. It's man that's creating, and therefore we make up stories about a superman, an uberman, a most powerful man that created everything. That is a much more parsimonious explanation for how that Bible got there. Instead of God creating and then expecting man to do the same, man creates and then creates a God to reflect their nature. Just the simple thing that we create because we're tool users. That's how we evolved. We evolved to make things, and that's what we do. We make all kinds of things. What's religion made? I mean, yeah, it's built some nice buildings and sort of some nice books and some nice things, sure. But what progress has it actually made? How has it contributed to the entire knowledge that humans have about tools and creation? If you want to call it creation, not much.
Is God creating a universe. So God creates a place for people to have relationships, and he says that men and women are created in his image.
Here comes
What
projection.
does Mark Zuckerberg, who's created in the image of God, do with his life?
So these things are not necessarily at odds. I mean, I think that's, and I think probably to some degree you'd expect me to say something like this because I've dedicated my life to creating things that help people connect.
He creates digital worlds for human relationships. Talk about imaging God. Now,
Yeah, well, I mean, that's only if God created the universe. If God created the universe, if God didn't create the universe, then he's not imaging God at all. He's just creating virtual worlds. He's creating communities, which is what we've done forever, regardless of which God we believed in. Like, so this whole thing back to the Bible, it doesn't explain why people in Japan are doing the same thing. It doesn't explain why people have created tribes and groups and communities over the course of human history in places that they hadn't even heard of the Bible. So, maybe you can explain that one. Why did the medieval Japanese people who have never heard of the Bible create community as well? I know what your answer is probably going to be. It's probably going to be because Bible, because my Bible says so.
Fortunately, the interview ends right after this, but we can think through this a bit more.
Yeah, so projection is going to basically project. We can think through this. We can start to project what I believe on what I think he was saying.
Mark Zuckerberg and co. created Facebook, which is a kind of world where people interact. But now they're creating the metaverse, which is an actual virtual universe.
Yeah, I think virtual universe is a little strong, mate. It is. If metaverse is a virtual universe, then WoW is a virtual universe. Then Second Life is come on, like seriously, it's not a virtual universe. It's just a metaverse. I mean, it's got a catchy name, sure, but it doesn't make it a virtual universe.
So he creates a universe for people to build connections. And what do people do with the universe they've been given? They instantly start horribly abusing each other. A British woman who recently decided to join the Zuckerverse says that she was virtually ganked in seconds.
Yeah, so I've had to bleep this out because I know maybe David doesn't understand how YouTube algorithms work, but I do, and YouTube doesn't like that word. Doesn't like it. So yeah, people or just start doing horrible things, much like the real world, because people are people. So what I want to point out is that God creates a universe and people do horrible things, and Mark Zuckerberg creates a universe and people do horrible things. Does that mean God has got the same foresight as Zuckerberg? What's God going to do to stop this abuse? What's Zuckerberg going to do to stop this abuse?
Of joining. Her avatar was virtually. Think about this. You build a universe. You want to bring people closer together. And people use the universe you built for. So, what do? You make some rules. You put together a trust and safety team to enforce the rules.
Yeah. How are the rules enforced? How are the rules enforced in our universe, David? Do angels come down and prevent people? Does anything happen from God? Does he kick people? Does he ban people who break the rules? No, no. It's left up to us. We're the ones doing it. We're the ones laying down the rules. It doesn't, he's got no God's got no moderators on this planet. Like if a person kills somebody, then gets away with it, God doesn't come down and tell him, "Hey, you're banned. I'm kicking you." No, it's up to us. We're the ones that take action on it, not God. So what he's essentially saying is that Mark Zuckerberg is doing a better job of running his universe than God does. Why? Why is this?
But as soon as you start making and enforcing rules, everyone starts complaining. Because wherever you draw the line on any difficult issue, there are going to be people on one side of the line who say you're being too strict, and there are going to be people on the other side of the line who say you're not being strict enough.
Except there's some things that we can all agree should not happen. Like we can all agree that that woman should not have been harassed in the way that she was harassed. We can all agree. No one's going to stand up after a story like that and say, that's too severe. Those people, you're being totalitarian. Stop it. No, like, come on. And if people do, who cares? Who cares? Oh, hey, Titan. Yeah, they need your moderation. God needs your moderation, Titan. Well, this is the thing. God needs to employ humans as moderators because he doesn't have any. God needs a trust and safety team because things on this world are out of control. You've got a war going on in Eastern Europe. What's God's trust and safety team doing about that? I want to know. Where can I email this God's trust and safety team? David, give me an email address for it. I want to ping them an email, find out.
There's a lot of push. There's things like, okay, you've got to do more. There's clearly a lot more bad content that people aren't reporting or that you're not getting to, and you need to get more effective at that. And I was pretty sympathetic to that. But then I think at some point along the way, there started to be almost equal issues on both sides of, okay, actually you're kind of taking down too much stuff, right? Or some of the stuff is borderline and it wasn't really bothering anyone and they didn't report it. So is that really an issue that you need to take down? Whereas we still have the critique on the other side too, where a lot of people think we're not doing enough. As we build the technical capacity, I think it becomes
and that's fine. You've got disagreement on what constitutes your bad content, as you put it, which I would say is sort of horrible stuff happening. But the whole point is that God's doing nothing. We're not having a conversation about what God should stop and what God shouldn't stop, kind of thing. We all agree that these things are bad. We all agree that having a volcano erupt and burying a city is bad. Nobody's arguing that. But the whole point is that he's saying, hey, some people say I should do more, some people say I should do less. Who's saying that God should do less? Right? Who's making that argument that God's overstepping their bounds by stopping all this evil? Who's honestly saying that? Because if God was doing something, that would be an analogy. But God isn't doing anything.
More philosophically interesting, almost where you want to be on the line. The challenge with free speech is that everyone agrees that there is a line where if you're actually about to do physical harm to people, there should be restrictions. The thing that everyone disagrees on is what is the definition of real harm?
The result is that everyone is angry. And who do we get angry at?
We get angry at Zuckerberg because he's the CEO of the company.
The one who built the platform, or...
Well, I mean, when you say he built the platform, he didn't do it himself. He didn't create the meta. Like, it wasn't this guy sitting at a desk doing the metaverse all by himself, David. You do realize that he's just the CEO of the company that built it. So we're more angry at the company than at him specifically. I think that he has his share of blame, but it's more the company than anything else, which is Zuckerberg's company. So he is the head of it. So, ultimately he has responsibility. But that's, it's not like he built the metaverse all by himself. Like he was the only one working on it.
Or the metaverse or the universe. And we don't just get angry about the rules. We get angry because the people who enforce the rules are, quite frequently, total scumbags.
People who enforce the rules are total scumbags. This wouldn't have anything to do with you going to prison, would it, David? Not sure. Asking for a friend.
The reason I left Facebook wasn't that I had a problem with the rules. I had a problem with the people who were paid to enforce the rules because they didn't seem to care about the rules at all.
Well, I hate to break it to you, mate, but you're probably talking about an algorithm. Like, they don't have a veritable army of people to sort through every single post. They usually use sort of algorithms in order to spot certain content and then remove it. So, you can be angry about that. You can leave. That's fine. That's perfectly your choice. But it's a private company. However they decide to enforce the rules is kind of their thing. But, at least they're doing something about the horrible stuff going on. At least they're taking some action, which is more than I can say for your God.
It just seemed to ban a person for saying something they didn't like. So someone would
Did you violate terms of service asking for a friend?
send me a death threat. I would take a screenshot of the death threat and I would post it and say, hey, everyone, look what this guy just said. He said he's going to kill me.
Yeah, that's probably a bad idea, dude. You're probably better off like sending it to Facebook and saying, hey, I need the safety team to do something about it. Like, reposting a death threat is not a great idea, sir. He doesn't seem like he understands how these platforms work. Why are Christians always so technologically illiterate is my question. Like, I mean, I saw on Big Bad Mamas, who does some fantastic videos, I saw this of Kent Hovind fumbling around with his tech. Like, why are they so bad with computers? I don't know if that's across the board. I'm not going to lump everybody in with it, but it just seems to be to an alarming degree that they have no idea how to work, any kind of IT system. It's kind of, yeah, maybe a little less time reading your Bible and a bit more time, I don't know, taking a computer course, playing some games, play some video games, sir. I don't know, but you need help.
Trying to shame the person. And Facebook.
Yeah, don't shame people. Don't shame people. Shame never helped anybody. Like, I get that you're angry about the threat, and rightfully so. You should be angry about it, but there's a lot better ways to go about it than repost and shame, rather than alerting authorities and letting them take care of it. If the authorities don't do anything, then yeah, you have a right to be mad about it. The way God doesn't do anything about it, But I mean, I'm not angry at God. Like, I don't think a God exists. There's nothing to be angry about. It'd be like being angry that you didn't get a certain Christmas present that you wanted, so you're angry at Santa. Like, it's just not, you can't be angry at something you don't believe exists.
Facebook would suspend me for hate speech. I once got suspended for posting a famous picture of a man who refused to salute Hitler. I posted the picture with a circle around the guy who refused to salute Hitler and a caption that said, "Be this guy. Be the sort of person who wouldn't salute an evil person, even if everyone around you was saluting the evil person." Facebook banned the picture as hate speech.
Yeah, no, it probably wasn't even. It was probably Facebook's algorithm. You don't they do not literally have an army of moderators going through and with a fine-tooth comb through millions and millions, like I think it's hundreds of millions by now, Facebook pages to review content. They have, sort of automatic neural networks to determine what's appropriate content and what's not. And you probably could have taken it up with them and protested the decision kind of thing, and then a team probably would look at it. Like, you don't seem to understand how it works. This isn't like where people go through everybody's account and try and find things. It just doesn't work like that.
Kind of ironic. It's like Facebook was saying, how dare you tell people not to submit to an evil and corrupt authority? This happened over and over and over again until I got sick of the platform and left. Now, it wasn't Mark Zuckerberg who was banning my posts and repeatedly suspending me. It was either morally depraved or irretrievably stupid content moderators who were suspending me.
Or algorithms, or just automatic algorithms that recognize content and remove the offending content. That too. I'm not sure why that's not an option.
I had no idea who was banning content that should never be banned. So who did I come to despise? You guessed it, the face of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, but he's not the face of Facebook. He's the CEO. He's the guy he's the largest shareholder and the CEO. So ultimately, he is the one responsible. Ultimately. I mean, he is responsible to his shareholders to make a profit, but he does have a lot of influence in how it goes. So, really the CEO is where the buck stops in a company. Like, they have to take responsibility for the direction of the company. That's why they get paid more than anybody else. Like, you don't seem to understand how corporations work. The CEO is the boss of the company. He's the head boss. Nobody has more authority than him. And he does have a responsibility, a financial responsibility to make money for his shareholders. But apart from that, he does determine the direction of the company. So yeah, in a way, he's responsible. I don't understand why you don't get that.
He's the one who set up the massively defective system. So he's the one I didn't like. I now have no desire to be on Facebook and no desire to enter the metaverse. In fact, I can only think of one reason to enter the metaverse.
Yeah, well, that's your decision, mate. But he probably didn't set all of that up himself. Like, it's not like he's just doing the entire company all by himself. He's the one that is at the top and ultimately responsible. But a company isn't just one person, like your God is just one entity kind of thing. It's not just one agent. It's a whole bunch of people making a whole bunch of decisions. And the CEO, while he guides the company's direction, he doesn't get into the nitty gritty. You can't as a CEO. You can only sort of hand it down. So, you kind of are more angry at the company than the individual. Although, sort of Zuckerberg, he has to be responsible for some of the practices that she's put into place. Some of the pay practices, some of the other practices, he's got to be responsible for that. So I don't understand why you think Zuckerberg is sort of the ultimate authority when it comes to this metaverse. I mean, he is ultimately responsible, but you're sort of saying, oh, he is the only one person that has done this. No, it's a company, it's a corporation, it's made up of individuals.
You know what we should do?
What should we do?
We should all join the Matrix. I mean, the metaverse. Then we should wait a while. We should wait until we've all been plugged into it for a long time. We should wait until the metaverse is reality to us. And then, once the metaverse is reality to us, we'll start a community of people who don't believe that Mark Zuckerberg even exists.
What would that do? Like, what would that do? Okay, so you've got problems with people, harassment, really horrible actions in this metaverse. What would that do? Why would Zuckerberg care? Right? Like, you join the metaverse, you then go, oh, well, there's no such thing as Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg's going to go, I don't care. I'm making my money. Why would I care? I mean, why wouldn't, if you wanted to stop what was happening, why wouldn't Zuckerberg do some kicks and some bans and some actual action? What good? How will you show Mark Zuckerberg by joining the metaverse and then not believing him or that he exists? That won't change anything. And Zuckerberg wouldn't care. Why would he care?
Will make fun of anyone who believes in Mark Zuckerberg.
Why would he care? He wouldn't care. You're using the metaverse. That's it. He doesn't care apart from that.
That'll be the ultimate slap in his cyborg face.
I don't think it would be. I don't think it would. I think the ultimate slap in his face would be to take his business practices and the things that he has done wrong to the authorities, and having, a Senate hearing on Facebook like they did, and sort of, taking away his business or imparting some fines for him not doing the right thing. These are going to be slaps in his face. Joining his platform and then not believing he exists is not a slap in his face. You haven't presented any reason why Zuckerberg would care.
So, I like Mark Zuckerberg for the ways he images God, but a lot of people, including myself, don't like him because of some of the decisions he's made and some of the ways people are treated in the worlds he's created. This hostility towards Mark Zuckerberg leads to an intriguing question.
Why do you think so many people dislike you? Some even hate you. And how do you regain their trust and support? Given everything you just said,
We know why people don't like Mark Zuckerberg, so the important
Hiring practices, the business, unethical business practices. There are a lot of reasons I listed earlier.
question is, what can Mark do to regain people's trust?
Change his business practices, change the way that the platform is used, stop selling data. There's a lot of things he could do to regain people's trust. Probably make some donations to show that he's truly sorry for the way that he's run his business. Take care of his employees better. There's a whole load of stuff he could do to make people. What's David's solution here for good old Mark Zuck? What is it?
Mark has no clue. I can only speak for myself here, but I can tell you all exactly what Mark Zuckerberg could do to regain my trust.
Oh, do tell exactly what he could do. Are you ready, folks?
Mark is building the metaverse.
Yes.
Many people are going to use the metaverse to abuse and degrade each other. So,
Yes.
rules will need to be made. Rules will need to be enforced.
Yeah, so why doesn't God enforce his rules? Because he doesn't. He makes the rules and then tells us to do it ourselves. Why isn't there kicks? Why isn't there bans? Why doesn't, somebody do something wrong and immediately get punished in this world? So what God does, and let's be clear with this sort of metaphor that David's using and apply it to God evenly rather than the selective way that he's doing. So people do horrible stuff in the metaverse. People do horrible stuff in our world, our universe. In the metaverse, we're saying, hey, people should be kicked and banned and action taken immediately. What God is doing is basically going, well, I'm going to wait till you're finished and logged out. And then, right, if you believe that Mark Zuckerberg made the metaverse, you're going to be rewarded. But if you don't believe Mark Zuckerberg made the metaverse, then you're going to be punished. What kind of a weird-ass system is Mark Zuckerberg creating? What kind of system is that? So if I do something horrible to some woman in the metaverse, and I come out going, yes, I believe in Mark Zuckerberg, and I believe Mark Zuckerberg will forgive me, and I'm sorry. I get $2,000 in the mail. I get rewarded. And somebody comes out who didn't do anything wrong in the metaverse, didn't do a thing wrong, was nice to everybody, logs out and is fined because he didn't believe that Mark Zuckerberg created the metaverse. What kind of a system is that? That is the weirdest system I've ever heard from.
The people who are paid to make and enforce these rules will also use their positions of power to abuse and degrade users.
Yeah, maybe. Nobody said it's a perfect system, but at least in Zuckerberg's thing, something's being done. I don't know where it's up to. I don't think it's a perfect solution. I don't think anything's a perfect solution. But at least in our virtual worlds, we're doing something. But God isn't doing anything. He's letting the actions go on unimpeded, unrestricted, natural events catastrophically ruining everybody's time, and then afterwards punishing people that didn't believe he was there because he didn't do anything. What a weird system you've got, David. I don't understand how this is comparable to a safety team helping out people logged into a metaverse. It's weird.
And there will be absolutely nothing that users can do about it. Same as Facebook, same as Twitter, same as YouTube. Users will feel completely helpless as the people who are given power over them use that power to abuse them.
This guy he's got to have been kicked from multiple platforms. I've heard people talk like this, the moderators are abusing me from, always abuse me. Yeah, no, you're probably breaking terms of service or community guidelines. Like, seriously, David, I've heard this rhetoric from people who have said the most horrible things and been kicked.
And these same users who feel helpless will think about Mark Zuckerberg and his billions of dollars. And he'll seem like he's incredibly distant, so distant that it's like he's in another world. If Mark Zuckerberg wanted to regain my trust,
what could he do to regain your trust? Change his business practices, fix his hiring practices, change his policies on sale of data to third parties. What could he do, David? What could he do?
He would have to enter the metaverse, not
what? Why?
Not as Mark Zuckerberg with all his privileges, but as a normal user. The people who run the metaverse, the people who enforce the rules, the other users, they couldn't know that he was Mark Zuckerberg.
What's that going to do? What will that do to fix the problem?
He'd have to live like any other person in the metaverse. Then he'd have to expose the problems in the metaverse from within the metaverse. He'd have to expose the horrible behavior of other users and especially of the people who enforce the rules.
Why would he have to do that? He's already in charge. He's already the CEO. Why would he have to go in as a normal user when he's already in charge, like he is the ultimate authority? Why would he have to do that?
He'd have to be attacked and beaten by other users who are angry at him for shining a light on their behavior. He'd have to be repeatedly suspended by the people who enforce the rules because they don't like what he's saying.
What would that change? What would that actually change? And he's already CEO. Like, what?
He'd have to be horribly mistreated while doing absolutely nothing wrong until the people who enforce the rules terminate his account. That's what he'd have to do to regain my trust.
So he's got to pretend to be somebody he's not in a virtual world, like go into that world, pretend to be somebody else, and you couldn't know that it's him. Like, be on the receiving end of these problems he already knows exists to regain your trust. I think you have trust issues. I think that and plus it won't change anything. How will that change anything?
Whatever else Mark Zuckerberg did after that, I would at least know that he understands what it's like to be in the world he's created.
What does that matter? What will that change? Okay, he understands what it's like to be a user. Big deal. Because he's not the one actually doing stuff. He's just the CEO. Like, this won't change anything. Him changing policy will change things, not going into the world, bearing all of this stuff. That's not actually going to change a thing.
Imagine a creator who did that.
So instead of changing the policies to prevent the atrocities and evils that are going on in your universe, instead you pretend to be a normal person in the universe, get clocked out, and change literally nothing. And that's your solution to bad things happening. Yeah, so that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. I went through all of my notes, and I tell you what, this is such a weird and wacky kind of, well, Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse is the universe. Here's why Mark Zuckerberg should be Jesus for some reason. It's such a weird non sequitur of an argument to say that, hey, things go wrong. People do bad things, and bad things happen. Sometimes it's not even people. Sometimes it's just natural events or viruses or some kind of tragedy. In order to solve these problems, the creator should go into that universe, be on the receiving ends of these problems that ultimately they're responsible for, then exit their universe, and then do nothing to address any of the problems. This isn't a solution. And the same people demanding that Zuckerberg do something, God has done nothing. And this is the problem of evil. Why is it that the person that does good things and helps everybody in their community get punished afterwards for simply not believing that Zuckerberg exists? They're not rewarded or punished on the actions they've taken. They're not rewarded or punished on, whether they've been a good person or a neutral person. They're punished on whether they're part of, the Zuckerberg faith or not. So, yeah, I mean, I really wanted to point this out because it was kind of incoherent, and I don't understand why David Wood would use this argument. It seems very, incredibly flimsy, to sort of say, hey, Mark Zuckerberg creates, therefore creator of the universe. And then secondly, flimsy, because he's created a metaverse, he could be like Jesus and regain all our trust. I don't see why I would trust him. If he's doing the same business practices and the same, selling data and all the same problems, why should we trust him for just going into his own creation? Seems weird, because he hasn't changed anything. Nothing's changed. People are still as bad as ever. But no, it's left to us to sort it out. And we can do that. We don't need a God for that. And we don't need a Bible for it either. We can do it just off our own bat, as we've been doing all this time. So that's really just what I wanted to bring you. And it's sort of food for thought that David thinks this is a good argument, or at least something good enough to present on his channel. I hope to do more streams like this and sort of point out the flaws in things. But I thank you so much for joining me. If you could give a like and subscribe, it would really help me out, and I really do appreciate everybody for joining me. I'm gonna go, and I'm going to try and find some more of these. I do have some debates coming up. I'll try to keep you apprised of that. But for the moment, do be kind to yourself and do be kind to each other. Thank you.